Friends, you know that Adolf Hitler is considered the most cruel tyrant of this century. Why did he harbor such intense hatred toward the Jewish people? And why did he ultimately kill millions of Jews? What was it that Hitler discovered about Jews? He wanted to annihilate the Jewish race from the world. In this video, I will give you a brief history of Adolf Hitler and the Jews. If Jordanians hadn't expelled them and Palestine hadn't offered refuge, Gaza today would resemble what occurred in Germany back then. It was the same situation as Germany, so let's get started. Who doesn't know Hitler? Adolf Hitler is a name that has been one of the world's most famous names since the 19th century to this day. After World War I, what he did to the Jews was so horrific. Even today, Jews tremble at his name. You won't believe that this guy killed more than 6 million Jews, and not only that, but he killed them with such brutality that just hearing about it would send chills down any person's spine. The reason was that this guy intensely hated Jews, so he wanted to exterminate them from the entire world. At that time, people thought that Hitler was a very cruel person who is an enemy of all humanity, but the truth is that he had no enmity with humanity. Rather, he was solely and exclusively an enemy of Jews, therefore against the world. He wanted to erase the name and identity of the Jews. However, the question is why Hitler harbored enmity and hatred towards the Jews, and ultimately, what was the reason? He was responsible for the killing of 6 million Jews. Nevertheless, to the world, Hitler is a great murderer and tyrant. But if viewed from Hitler's point of view, the manner in which he treated the Jews ultimately saved the German race, and when you hear his entire historical story, you will be compelled to accept that Hitler's atrocities were wrong, but his legacy still affects society today. Perspective regarding the Jews was largely justified. This story began in 1914 when Adolf Hitler was a soldier of Germany. He was never an ordinary soldier, he was exceptional. But along with that, he was also very smart. In 1914, when the Great War first began, Hitler, along with his army, confronted the enemy, and he continued to fight the war for 4 years because he was a very sharp-minded person. Therefore, besides fighting in the war, he also paid attention to all the activities happening around, and he kept assessing what was going on around. Moreover, there were quite a few Jews in Germany's politics and its army. When the war ended, his country had already lost. Indeed, Hitler sincerely regretted that Germany had lost the war, but he remained a remarkably thoughtful and introspective person. Unable to understand how it lost, despite numerous soldiers and resources, it began investigating all matters that occurred during the war. It started investigations on all issues. The Jewish soldiers present in the army and many prominent personalities were under suspicion from the very first day. But when it examined the conditions and events during the war, it discovered that the Jewish soldiers had conspired with the Germans, which caused the country to lose the war. They passed all German soldiers' secrets to Russia, so whenever German forces acted anew, Russia knew. And Russia always thwarted them by ensuring that these traitors carried out poison gas attacks at Russia's behest, resulting in the deaths of many soldiers. These individuals were so exceedingly treacherous that the very nation which had nurtured and raised them ultimately chose to betray them, consistently attempting to inflict harm upon them. When Adolf Hitler discovered that members of his military who were Jewish had collaborated against him, he became intensely enraged and made a resolute vow to exact severe revenge upon the Jewish population. He had gained a deep understanding of the deceitful and malicious mindset that he associated with the Jewish community through his extensive and careful observations over several years. But in reality, he stood up and decided that he would now take revenge against the Jews. Moreover, he had understood the deceitful and evil mindset of the Jews. But in reality, he had judged that the Jews are a people who engage in backbiting, and if these people stay in Europe, then the German race would also be in danger. Anyway, Hitler began to inform his associates about them, and before he knew it, he indoctrinated the people to such an extent that everyone stood up to support Hitler. Even in 1933, when the elections were held in Germany, they gave him the vote and made him the mayor of Germany. As soon as Hitler became the mayor of Germany, he obtained authority. He acquired many powers. He wanted to
bring them under his control, understanding that if they were not controlled now, a time would come when these Jews would start to rule over them. But the problem was that the Jews were so clever that they had already spread throughout Germany, and they did not accept any means of being controlled. When Hitler saw that the Jews were not being controlled directly, he took matters into his own hands and decided to eliminate these traitors at the root. In reality, this man had such a mentality that he couldn't understand how to get rid of them. So he, in the German city of Chalmino, started specifically building a killing center for that purpose. In this killing center, Jews were brought and were either shot with guns, or else muriatic acid would be released onto them in a room, causing them to die a painful death. After that, their corpses were loaded into a truck and thrown into the forest. In Nazi Germany, not only did the number of killing centers increase, rather, the number of Jews dying was increasing day by day. These killing centers were also called death factories. Every day in these death factories, thousands of Jews were brought and killed. Hitler's hatred for Jews was such that if his plan succeeded, not only would Germany erase their names from the entire world, within 2 years, this regime had killed over 6 million Jews. Its officials would capture each Jew from all over Germany and bring them to these death factories, where they were killed in an extremely brutal manner. Adolf Hitler firmly held the conviction that unless the Jewish population was eradicated, they would inevitably stage another rebellion and ultimately bring catastrophic devastation to the nation. And his point of view was so strong that more than half of the country stood with him. Believe me, if this person had lived, perhaps not even a single Jew would have remained in the whole world. But in the end, he did something else, and Hitler left this world. Even today, many people call him evil, but if viewed technically, his point of view was at least correct. Yes, he did kill humanity extensively and kept killing people unnecessarily. But just imagine if these same Jews were inside Germany, then what is happening in Gaza might perhaps be what is happening in Berlin. The interesting thing is that the president of Israel says that Hitler was not supposed to kill us. He did all this only and solely at the behest of Muslims. But now the whole world has come to know how big these profiteers are, and the biggest forbidden elements are those whom the country shelters. They stabbed the same individual in the back. First, they committed treason with Germany, and afterwards, they came to Palestine. And those who provided them shelter began to become enemies with them. After Hitler, the Jews who survived were expelled by Europeans like flies from milk. They had thrown them into Palestine. The surprising thing is that these people are escaping the Germans. Such refugees had come here and kept living on bits of Palestine. But then what Hitler feared happened. Today, these people are doing the same with the Muslims of Palestine. If these were in Germany, they would do the same to Germans because betrayal is in their nature. Honestly, this community is so nefarious that Allah has sent as many prophets and messengers to their side, but except for some people, everyone else refused to believe in them. These people have always been dying in the death of ignorance and will continue to die in the future. Now these people have become so powerful that whatever is happening in Palestine, the whole world has witnessed it, but no one has the courage within to fight them. Especially the Muslim rulers are also silent in front of it, and the happenings in Palestine, watching the deadly game happening before their eyes as if it's completely ordinary. Honestly, compared to 52 Islamic rulers, even Hitler was better. He who had backed him earlier today, it has become evident that these people are the world's biggest traitors. They deprive the country they go to. They deplete it only by this. Now they have infiltrated Masjid al-Aqsa and have crossed all limits. But despite this, countless Muslim rulers have their hands clasped together, sitting and thinking that today some Hitler will be born and he will eliminate the Jewish generations and they won't have to do anything. Anyway, what do all of you have to say about this? Please inform me in the comedy box.